The house had been empty for 8 years, but it never truly felt abandoned. Everyone in the old neighborhood whispered about it. The last house on the bend, the pale one with the narrow windows and the warped front steps. You could drive past it at noon under the brightest sun and still feel the shadows gathering around the porch like they were waiting for something or someone to return. When Maya bought it, the neighbors didn't try to hide their concern. She had seen the looks, the pitying half-smiles, the muttered warnings, the soft, hesitant, "You're moving into that place?" But she didn't care. It was cheap, it was spacious, and more importantly, it was hers. A fresh start, a new chance after a year full of endings. But of all the rooms in the house, the one that unsettled her from the very beginning was the small room at the end of the upstairs hall. It had no lock, no switch for ceiling light, no signs it had ever been lived in. Just a window, a built-in shelf, and warped floorboards that creaked even when she wasn't stepping on them. Still, emptiness had never bothered her. Or at least, that's what she thought. Her first night wasn't peaceful. Every wall had a groan. Every pipe had a complaint, and the cold draft carried through the hallway like something breathing. At around 3:14 a.m., she woke to a soft thud. Not loud, not sharp, but unmistakably inside the house. She sat straight up, heart racing. Another thud, then silence. She grabbed her phone, letting its dim glow guide her. When she stepped into the hall, everything was still. The house was too quiet. And then her eyes drifted to the end of the hallway. The small room, the empty one, had its door slightly open. Only a sliver, but she remembered closing all the doors before bed. When she pushed it open, the darkness inside felt thick, almost textured. Her phone's flashlight cut through the blackness. Empty, completely empty, but the smell had changed. A faint scent of old soil, damp and metallic. She stepped backward, closing the door slowly. The moment the latch clicked, a whisper of cold air brushed across her back like a hand gliding past. She didn't sleep after that. Over the next week, the small room seemed to shift subtly whenever she entered it. Nothing obvious, nothing she could prove, but little differences. The window she was sure she had shut would be open again. The curtain she had tied back would hang loose. Dust patterns on the floor would look disturbed, like someone had been walking inside. One morning, she found a set of tiny scratches on the wooden shelf. They were shallow, but deliberate. Thin lines arranged in a pattern, almost like someone trying to carve letters but giving up halfway. Another day, she found a single dark thread in the middle of the floor. Coarse, too long to be from any of her clothes. Too dark to belong to anything she owned. She disposed of them, but the room didn't want to stay empty. Because every time she left, she found something new inside the next day. But things escalated when she made the mistake of placing a small decorative mirror on the shelf. It was just to add life to the room. Just something simple. The next morning, she found the mirror lying face down on the floor. Not broken, just flipped, like something had turned it around because it didn't want to be seen. That day, she stopped entering the room entirely, but she made sure the door stayed closed. For a while, that was enough. The real nightmare began 3 weeks later. It was raining, a heavy downpour that drummed against the roof like frantic fingertips. She sat on the couch, wrapped in a blanket, trying to ignore the rhythmic thudding of water against the walls. Then the power cut out. Darkness swallowed everything. She exhaled shakily and turned on her phone's flashlight. That's when she heard it, a sound she had never heard inside the house before. A slow, steady inhale, coming from the second floor, followed by an equally slow exhale. Her stomach twisted. It sounded like someone breathing with their mouth slightly open, wet, rattling close. She forced herself up the stairs. Each step groaned under her feet. Halfway up, the breathing stopped abruptly. She thought the silence would calm her, but it didn't. Silence felt worse, because silence meant it was listening. When she reached the top of the staircase, her phone's dim light illuminated the hallway. All the doors were shut, except one. The room at the end had its door wide open, for the first time since she moved in. And there was something new inside. A faint glow, soft bluish, reflecting off the walls. Like moonlight, except the window was tightly closed. She held her breath and approached slowly. When she reached the doorway, The light vanished in an instant, like someone turning off a lamp, not fading, but snapping into darkness. The cold air inside slapped her skin as if punishing her for looking. She stepped back, shut the door, and this time she dragged a small dresser in front of it. But she already knew. Furniture wouldn't stop whatever was inside. It started whispering 2 nights later. She woke again at the same hour, 3:14 a.m. Not to a thud, not to breathing, to a whisper. A breathy, disjointed voice echoing faintly through the hall from behind that closed door. She froze. At first, she thought it was the wind forcing its way through the cracks. But the whisper repeated, closer, clearer. Maya, come back. Her chest tightened, and the room around her seemed to shrink, suffocating her with a cold weight. She didn't move. She didn't breathe. The voice grew more urgent. Come back, please come back. Her trembling hand reached for the lamp beside her bed. When she switched it on, the whispering immediately stopped, just cut off, like a phone hung up mid-sentence. She stayed awake until sunrise, certain that if she fell asleep, she'd wake to find something standing beside her. But daylight brought a false sense of safety, until she checked the hallway. The dresser she placed in front of the room's door had been pushed aside, not toppled, not dragged, just moved aside enough to open the door. And the door itself was cracked open an inch, just wide enough for an eye to look through. Maya tried rationalizing everything. Old houses creak. Wind makes strange noises. Her mind was under stress. She hadn't slept well. Logical explanations. But logic died the moment she found the footprint. It was small, child-sized, but wrong. The heel was too narrow. The toes were too long. The arch curved unnaturally. And it was made not of dirt or dust, but of something darker, almost tar-like. It trailed from the hallway directly into the room. No footprints came back out. She backed away slowly. Her breath came out in shaky fragments. That's when the whispering returned. Not from inside the room this time, but right next to her ear. Stay. She bolted down the stairs so fast she stumbled and nearly crashed into the wall. She didn't return upstairs until daylight. She decided it was time to leave. Permanently. She didn't pack. She didn't clean. She didn't even check the other rooms. She simply grabbed her keys, phone, wallet, and headed straight for the front door. Her hand touched the doorknob, and the moment she turned it, a loud, violent slam echoed upstairs. She froze. Another slam, then another. 3 total. The unmistakable sound of doors being forced shut. Except every door was already shut. Except one, the small room. The same door she'd left cracked open earlier. It slammed again, harder, shaking the walls. The floor vibrated beneath her feet. Then the door began banging repeatedly, fast, aggressive, angry, like something inside was throwing its full weight against it. Bang, 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 bang. She backed away from the front door, terrified it might break open. Then, silence. Complete, perfect silence, followed by the slow creak of the door opening upstairs. Footsteps stepped into the hallway. Slow, dragging, deliberate. One step, then another, growing closer, descending the stairs. She didn't wait to see what it was. She sprinted out of the house barefoot, leaving the door swinging wide behind her as rain hammered her skin. She didn't stop running until she was in her car. She drove until the house was only a memory in her rearview mirror. 3 days later, she gathered the courage to return briefly with 2 people, her cousin and a locksmith, to retrieve the important belongings she left behind. She didn't want to go back inside, but she needed her documents, her laptop, and some irreplaceable items. When they entered, the house was silent. Too silent. And cold. Unnaturally cold. When they went upstairs, they found every door exactly as she'd left it, except the small room. The door was wide open. On the floor was a single item she had never seen before. A small wooden toy, hand-carved, worn smooth, shaped like a little person, arms outstretched. Its face was scratched with the same jagged markings she'd seen on the shelf. Her cousin picked it up. Looks old, he said, but Maya's eyes were fixed on the shelf. 3 new scratches had appeared, longer, deeper, and this time there was no question what they were forming. Letters, crude, uneven, spelling a name. Her name, Maya. She backed away slowly. Her cousin turned toward her, confused, uneasy. Then he asked, "Did you hear that?" She didn't want to. A soft whisper drifted through the room. "Don't leave." Her cousin froze. What the hell was that? Maya didn't answer, because she heard a second voice layered underneath. Lower, hungrier, not human. "Stay." Her cousin dropped the toy. They didn't gather anything else. They ran. It has been 2 months since Maya escaped that house. She refuses to drive anywhere near the neighborhood. She sleeps with all lights on. She avoids closed doors. She avoids open doors even more. But something is wrong in her new apartment. 3 days ago, she found a dark, tar-like smudge near her bedroom door. 2 days ago, she woke to faint scratches on the wood. Last night, she heard soft breathing coming from the closet. And this morning, right before she grabbed her phone, she saw something on the floor near the foot of her bed. The same hand-carved toy, arms outstretched, face scratched, waiting. And behind it, on her wall, carved into the paint. "Welcome back. I used to think parks were harmless. Places where people jog, kids play, couples walk their dogs. Somewhere along the line, after what happened, I realized that a park can turn into a completely different world once sunlight disappears. Trees stop looking alive, paths seem to shift, and sometimes things appear that were never supposed to exist in the first place. Looking back now, I should have paid attention to the first strange detail. I should have turned around the moment I saw that old fence, crooked, wooden, rotting, standing deep inside Pine Break Park, a place I knew like the back of my hand. But I told myself it was nothing. Just an old maintenance barrier, maybe something left behind. I couldn't have been more wrong. My name is Nate, and this is the story I've tried to forget for a year. Every night, I still dream about that fence. Every night, I wake up sweating before the dream reaches the part one fear most. But I guess it's time I tell the whole thing. Pine Break Park wasn't huge, maybe a couple miles long, mostly hiking paths and thick pine trees. My friends and I grew up playing there. I used the trails for late night walks because it helped clear my head. I knew every bend, every footbridge, every cluster of trees. At least, I thought I did. It was early fall when the days started ending earlier, and the wind carried that cold bite, signaling the transition into winter. I had been dealing with a rough week at work, and walking the trails always settled me. I left my apartment at around 7 p.m., which meant I'd only get maybe 20 minutes of light. I figured it didn't matter. I knew the park, or so I believed. I took the main trail first, the one that loops around the little lake. I was halfway across the wooden footbridge when I got my first strange feeling. It wasn't fear. It was something quieter. Something like, hey, you're being watched, but not in an aggressive way. More like observed. I shook it off and kept walking. When I reached the back section of the park, the part that rarely sees joggers or families, I noticed something different. A path, a narrow one, leading deeper into the trees. A path I absolutely, without question, had never seen before. I stopped, leaned forward. The dirt looked undisturbed, no footprints, no bike tracks. And yet it was so perfectly cut through the trees, it almost seemed like someone, or something, had carved it recently. I told myself, maybe maintenance crews are adding a new trail. Yeah, that was easy enough, but I should have listened to my gut instead of trying to rationalize it. I followed it. The deeper I went, the quieter everything became. Even the wind seemed to avoid the place. For the first minute or so, it was just the faint crunch of leaves under my boots. Then I started hearing something else. A tapping, very faint, like something brushing lightly against wood. At first I thought it was branches swaying, but the tapping was steady, rhythmic, intentional. I walked another 30 feet, and then I saw it. A fence. An old, wooden fence that stretched endlessly left and right. It didn't belong there. It didn't match any part of the park. It wasn't even straight. More like a jagged line of rotting boards, some leaning, some cracked, all of them gray and ancient like they had been standing there longer than the park itself. My first thought, how have I never seen this? Not even once. Then came my second thought. Why is there a fence in the middle of the woods? I approached cautiously. The tapping sound grew louder. Something was hitting the fence from the other side. Not violently, just brushing, testing, almost like fingers drumming softly. I froze. Then everything went silent. A cold wave spread through the air, like stepping into a room with the AC blasting on full. Windless, breathless. Something on the other side moved. Not footsteps, not a rustle, not an animal. No, it was tall, heavy, slow. I should have run then. I really should have. The smart part of me whispered, "Leave. Now." But I called out anyway. "Hello? Anyone there?" The instant my voice echoed, something pressed against the fence directly in front of me. The boards didn't break. They didn't even groan. But I could see them bow inward, bending slightly toward me like something was leaning against them, pushing back. I stumbled backward, nearly tripping over my own feet. "Hey, who's there?" Silence. Then a single response came. A long, dragging breath. From the other side. Human. But wrong. I didn't breathe. I didn't blink. My mind screamed to turn and sprint, but my body wouldn't listen. Something slid along the fence, slowly, moving left, right, left again. As if pacing, as if thinking, as if deciding. My heart hammered. My legs finally obeyed. I backed away slowly, keeping my eyes on the fence. Then, a whisper, right against the boards. A voice low and hoarse, like someone who hadn't spoken in years. "Not this side." My breath hitched. I froze mid-step. The voice continued, a trembling whisper. "Go before it notices." Before what notices? My throat closed. My chest tightened. I couldn't move. Then came something else. A new sound. One that didn't feel like it belonged anywhere in this world. A creaking, deep and violent, as if something huge was turning toward me. The boards of the fence trembled lightly, dust falling from between the planks. Whatever the whisper warned me about was now aware of me. That snapped me out of my paralysis. I turned and ran. Branches tore my clothes. My lungs burned. My legs screamed. Every instinct I had told me not to look back. So of course I did. And in the faint remaining light, I saw a shape rising behind the fence. Tall, wrong, twisted in ways that made no sense with how bodies should move. Its head tilted unnaturally, and its shadow stretched far, far too long. Then it stepped closer, towering over the fence. And I realized it wasn't stepping, it was climbing, over the fence, coming to my side. I ran harder. The woods felt alive. The trees leaned inward. The ground seemed to shift. I swear the trail back was different, like the park was rearranging itself. Behind me, something massive landed on the ground with a thud. Not running, not walking, just standing, watching. I felt its stare burning into my back. I don't know how long I ran, but I eventually burst back onto the main trail. A couple of street lamps near the park entrance glowed faintly in the dark, and the moment I saw them, I sprinted straight toward the parking lot. Only when I reached the pavement did I dare to look back. Nothing. No creature. No whisperer. No fence. Just trees. Normal, familiar pine trees. The forest looked exactly how it always looked. Had I imagined it? No. Not when my shirt was torn. Not when my hands were shaking uncontrollably. Not when the bruising ache in my ribs pulsed where I had slammed into roots while running. Not when I could still hear that voice whispering in my mind. Not this side, not this side. I got in my car and drove home with shaking hands. Later that night, around 2 a.m., someone knocked on my window. Not the door, not the wall, the bedroom window. 3 slow knocks. I froze in bed. Then a voice, faint, hollow, strained, said, "It climbed over." I didn't sleep that night. I barely slept the nights after. The next morning, despite every instinct screaming at me to stay away, I went back to the park. I needed to see the fence again. Needed proof I wasn't losing my mind. I found the hidden trail easily. It was still there. But the deeper I went, the more wrong everything felt. The path looked different. Trees were rearranged. Fallen branches weren't where I remembered. When I reached the place where the fence should have been, nothing. No rotted boards. No posts. No clearing. No fence. Like it had never existed. Or like it had moved. Or like it only appears when it wants to. I turned around and left the park without looking back. That was a year ago. I haven't gone on a night walk since. But the worst part? The whispers never stopped. Sometimes, when I'm half asleep, I hear them right beside my bed. Sometimes I hear fingernails lightly tapping my wall. Sometimes I hear slow breathing outside my window. And once, only once, I heard the same hoarse voice from the fence whisper, "It's on your side now." I wasn't going to include this part. I didn't want to write it down or relive it, but maybe that's why I should. Maybe someone needs to know what can follow a person home. It happened 3 nights ago. I woke to the sound of wood creaking. Not my floorboards. Not my door. Something outside my window. Slow. Heavy. Purposeful. Then came a whisper. Not the warning voice, the other one. The deeper one. The one that shouldn't exist. The one that climbed the fence. "Found you." The temperature in my room dropped instantly. My breath fogged the air. My blanket stiffened with ice. I couldn't move. Couldn't scream. I lay frozen as the shape outside my window began to rise. A long, distorted shadow stretching up my wall. The same crooked posture. The same unnatural angle of the head. The same towering height. It pressed a hand against the window. Fingers far too long. Skin pale and stretched. Nails blackened. Then, tap, tap, tap. It tapped 3 times. I don't know what stopped it from coming in. I don't know if it couldn't, or if it's waiting. Waiting for what? I don't know. All I know is that it came over the fence, and it found me. And if that fence ever appears before you, if you ever hear tapping on the other side, if you ever hear someone whisper, "Not this side," don't ignore it. Don't get curious. Run. Because once the fence appears, and once something climbs over, it never goes back. Before you read this, I need you to understand something. Not all nightmares happen when you're asleep. Some begin in places you've walked 100 times. Some wait in the dark, patient and silent, until the exact moment you let your guard down. I learned that the hard way. And if you keep reading, you might learn it too. I used to think I understood fear. Real fear. The kind you feel sitting in a dark room alone during a power outage, or the kind that crawls up your spine when you walk home at night and hear footsteps that don't match yours. But what happened at Ridgepine National Park, that changed everything. This wasn't fear. This was intrusion. Something entering your life without permission, without sound, without mercy. Something that had always been there, but you never noticed until it decided you should. I was a seasonal park guide, fresh out of college, broke, and desperate for a job that didn't involve fluorescent lights or customer service. The forest sounded peaceful, wild in a way people forgot existed. My supervisor, Dale, assigned me the quieter side of the park, a miles-deep section of trails that hardly anyone visited. "Good for beginners," he said. "You'll get long days and even longer nights, but it's safe. Nothing out there but trees." He lied. Maybe not intentionally, but he didn't know what I would find. No one did. My area included an abandoned fire lookout, the Ridgepine Tower, built in the late 1950s and shut down decades later. It stood high above the tree line, overlooking a thick stretch of forest that the rangers jokingly called the Quiet Patch. They said animals avoided it. Birds didn't fly over it. Hunters never heard so much as a twig snap. Just empty woods, Dale had said. But humans have this bad habit of filling silence with assumptions. And those assumptions almost got me killed. My 4th night on duty was the first time anything felt wrong. The tower sits about 2 miles from the main cabin. Most rangers avoid it now, but we still check it once a week for vandalism or hikers who wander too far. The path leading to it is steep, weaving between boulders and moss-covered logs. That night, the air felt thick, like breathing through wool. I remember stopping halfway to catch my breath, but something else made me pause. The forest wasn't just quiet. It was listening. No wind, no rustling, no insects, nothing. I swallowed, trying to shake off the uneasiness, and climbed the old wooden steps of the tower. They creaked under my weight, complaining with every movement. At the top, the tiny observation room smelled like dust and mildew. I swept my flashlight around. Everything looked normal. But as I turned to leave, something on the glass caught my attention. A handprint, smudged across the window. Large. Too large. I stared for several seconds before pressing my own palm next to it. Mine looked childlike in comparison, but it wasn't the size that terrified me. It was the shape. The fingers were too long. The palm was too narrow. It wasn't a human handprint. Not exactly. I wiped it away with my sleeve. That's when the temperature dropped. A cold so sudden it stole my breath. My flashlight flickered. The wooden floor vibrated just slightly, almost like footsteps. Slow, steady footsteps climbing the tower stairs. I froze. I didn't breathe. The footsteps reached the top platform and stopped right outside the door. Then 3 knocks. Not frantic, not aggressive, just deliberate. I whispered, barely audible, "Hello?" No response. My heart hammered against my ribs. After what felt like minutes, the silence returned. I waited and waited. Finally, gathering what little courage I had, I opened the door. No one was there. The stairs were empty. The trail below, empty. But something moved in the trees. Not walking, not running, just shifting slowly, deliberately. A tall shape standing among the trunks, its silhouette too thin to be human. It stepped back into the darkness, disappearing without a sound. My skin went cold. My brain screamed run. My legs refused. When I finally forced myself to move, I walked fast, nearly slipping on the dirt path. I didn't look back. Not even when I heard the second set of footsteps, matching mine. Not even when I realized they stopped when I stopped. Not even when something whispered my name from inside the trees. I should have reported it. But what would I say? That tower is haunted. There's something tall living in the trees. I knew how it would sound. So the next morning, I convinced myself it was just nerves. Loneliness. Wind patterns. Echoes. Anything that made sense. But the forest refused to let me lie to myself. While I walked the trails later that day, I heard it again. Footsteps. Slow. In rhythm with mine. Stop. Silence. Start. Footsteps. And every time I glanced over my shoulder, I saw nothing. But the presence, that heavy, invisible weight, never left. Later, at the base of the tower, I found something new. A footprint. One single footprint in the dried mud. Not a shoe. Not a boot. A bare footprint. But again, wrong. The toes were too long. The arch too steep. And it was deep. Whoever, or whatever, left it weighed far more than any human. I stared at it for at least a minute before backing away. But something inside me already understood. I wasn't alone in those woods. And something knew I was there. 3 nights later, everything escalated. I was finishing paperwork around 11 p.m. when I heard crunching outside the cabin. Heavy footsteps circling the building. I turned off the lights. The moon was bright enough to silhouette everything outside. At first, I saw nothing. Then something tall moved past the window. A stretched shadow, thin arms hanging almost to its knees. A head tilted unnaturally, as if listening. I backed away slowly, not daring to breathe. It paused at the window, its outline visible against the moonlit forest. And then, it leaned closer. The shape pressed one long finger to the glass. Tap, tap, tap. A slow rhythm, a deliberate message. I crouched behind the counter, heart exploding in my chest. I could hear it breathing, slow, raspy, almost curious. Then something unexpected happened. It spoke. Not a word, not a sentence, just a broken imitation of my own voice. Hello, drawn out, mocking, wrong. My eyes watered, my stomach twisted. After a full minute, the footsteps moved away, fading into the forest. But I didn't sleep. Not that night, not the next, because the creature didn't leave. It only kept its distance, watching, waiting, learning. A week later, I made a decision. I needed to leave the job. I packed my things, wrote a resignation note, and took the trail toward the exit road. The faster I left, the safer I'd be. That was my logic. But creatures like this, they don't let go easily. Halfway to the road, I heard something ahead. Not footsteps, not wind, breathing, wet, uneven breathing. I crouched, stepping slowly around a boulder, and froze. There it stood, 20 feet away, in full daylight. Tall, lanky, skin pale like tree fungus. Limbs too long, shoulders hunched forward. And its face, God, its face. It didn't have eyes, no nose, only a thin slit where a mouth should be. But the slit moved, twitching, opening wider and wider, until a distorted voice came out. Don't go, The sound didn't belong in the daylight. It didn't belong anywhere. The creature stepped toward me. Slow, measured. I stumbled back, slipping on the dirt. It leaned forward, head twitching, mouth stretching. Then, without warning, it mimicked someone else's voice. My mother's voice. Stay. That broke me. I scrambled up and ran. Branches whipped my arms. Roots snagged my boots. But the creature didn't chase. It didn't need to. It simply watched, learned, remembered. I reached my car by dusk. I didn't look back. The forest felt heavier than ever. The air thick with moisture and the copper scent of earth turned over by something large. I started the car. Lights, engine, drive. As I turned onto the road, I checked the rearview mirror. I shouldn't have. If I hadn't, maybe I'd sleep at night. Maybe I wouldn't jump at every shadow. Maybe I wouldn't wonder if it followed me home. Because in the glow of my taillights, standing at the edge of the forest, was the tower. But the tower was miles away, and beside it, the creature, watching me. Its thin arms rested against the railing, its head tilted at that unnatural angle. And worse, a second silhouette stood next to it. My silhouette, perfectly still. Same height, same stance, same outline, except the head was tilted, just like the creature. Like it belonged to it. Like it had been copied, stored, remembered. I quit, moved, changed everything about my life. But sometimes when I walk past tall trees or old buildings with long shadows, I feel it again. That presence, that observation, that hunger. And on the worst nights, when I'm half asleep, I hear tapping on my window. Slow, deliberate, patient. Tap, tap, tap. And a voice, broken, stretched, impossible. Hello.